Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fan Sports New York Varsity. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marcilio Langella. And Mars, this is our Section 1 title preview show, our last show of the year. I mean, this is where it all comes down to, right? Becoming Section 1 champ. Some of the teams have already punched their ticket into the state tourney, but usually this is where you want to become champion of your section and punch your ticket into the state tourney. And this is with all the marbles, Mars.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is like the moment that we've been waiting for. I feel like for even longer than just 1 year. We missed last spring with with the COVID season. So now this is the chance for these programs to really show what they got. And I'm just excited to finally be able to see a section championship back again in Section 1.
Absolutely. And the games are at Arlington on Friday and Saturday. And we want to welcome our fans. We appreciate you guys. Again, this is our last show. I want to thank you guys for all the support that you have given us this season. I mean, we're a year-by-year basis, and we hope to continue to build this thing, but we never know what the future holds, right? So we want to thank everybody for the support. I want to thank Mars for the amount of work that he's done producing the videos that you see. And it's just been a lot of fun this year. And I just want to talk about what's going to happen on the show. We are going to go over, we've done a bunch of game picks all season long, so we're going to go over the game picks. We're also going to go over a segment called Reality Check, where I did give preseason predictions during my team preview show. We'll talk about how right and wrong I was, so we'll have a little bit of fun, and then we'll go over all the games. We have a couple interviews as well, and so it's a jam-packed show. So let's dive into it, Mars. Let's start with the game picks, and our goal before the season, we talked about it on the team preview show, and actually week one, we wanted to get over 75% of our picks correct. We both hit over that mark, so that's good news. You're at 79% picks. I am at 83%. Wow. So I wish it
was all those Pleasantville games.
I wish there was a crown.
Allowed to pick. That's what happened.
I wish there was a crown so that they could put it on my head this time around. Our friends over at Low HUD in the same game games, we picked 82%. So they're pretty good too. But I'm the king this season. So 83%, both over 75. Maybe we move the goal up to 80. What
was my percent again?
79.
79.
Yeah, 79.
I told you, it's those Pleasantville games. I would have won the entirety of the...
Can't change that now. But let's go to the second part, what I call reality check. We used to do it on the other show about predictions that we made and how they aged this time around. And I made these predictions on our team preview show. You can go back and watch them for each class. And this was back in August, right? So it was a while ago. I tried to make some bold predictions. And Mars, we're going to determine, am I an Oracle or a dunce out of this? And let's start it in AA, Mars. My first prediction back in August, I said White Plains will have a top 2 offense in the class. Unfortunately, that did not happen. They were the number 3 offense in points scored at the end of the regular season. Carmel was number 1. Mamaroneck was number 2. So, again, that was a dud right there. My second one is Carmel will have a top 2 defense. I was correct on that one. Carmel was the number 1 defense in the class. My third prediction was Scarsdale and Suffern will make the playoffs. Do I get half credit? I mean, is it
can give yourself half?
Suffern made it. Suffern made it. Scarsdale did not.
Would you be considered an Oracle or dunce? I'd say you probably just like some.
What's in between that?
A rando on the street.
What's in between an Oracle and a dunce? And my final one in AA was Carmel will win the Section 1 title. That is still on hold. Obviously, there's a real opportunity there. They made the section championship, so that prediction's on hold. When I go to A, Mars. First prediction I made, Clarkstown North turns around. They were 4-11 the last 2 seasons. They will make the playoffs this season. They did. I mean, that is an absolute hit on that one. My second prediction, Mars, my dark horse team of A was Pelham, and I also said they would make the playoffs, and I hit on that one as well. Not a lot of people were on Pelham, so that was a big... Pelham had a really, really strong season, so good for them. I nailed on that one. My third prediction, the North League will have 3 out of the 4 final teams. They only had 2, and that was Somers and Mayapack. The other 2 was Rye and Pelham, so I did not get that one correct. I got 2 out of 4 instead of 3 out of 4. And my final one, this one was an ugly one. I have Rye versus Yorktown in the championship, and I said Rye will win. Now, Rye has made it. Yorktown has not. Yorktown was unfortunately hit with some heavy injuries. Did not make the playoffs.
If this was March Madness, you would have already been eliminated for that point.
But come on, 2 out of 4? This is in August. I made
that,
these predictions in August. So, I mean, come on. Throw me a bone here. Okay, when I go to B-Mars, this one was bad.
Yep.
My league winners, I had the North League being Byram Hills and the South League being Ardsley. Neither of them happened. North League Nanuet won. The South League Pleasantville won. That was a big dud for me. My second prediction, I said Bronxville will go over 500 for the season, and they will make the playoffs. They ended up being 4-4, so they were at 500 exactly, not over 500. So that part was wrong, but they did make the playoffs. So half credit, let's give me half credit.
Sure.
Last one, I had Ardsley winning the section title and going undefeated, and obviously that was a dud. Made it to the semis, but did not go undefeated, and they're not going to win the section title. So that is a fail. My final one out of the CD and Hudson Valley Football League class, Horace Greeley will have the best regular season record in the Hudson Valley Football League. That was correct. They did have the best. They weren't the number 1 seed, but they had the best regular season record in the Hudson Valley Football League. I said in the C playoffs, the final 4 will be Valhalla, Dobbs, Ferry, Albertus Magnus, and Hastings, Mars. I had 3 out of the 4 right. It was Valhalla, Dobbs, Ferry, Albertus Magnus, and Croton Harmon. So I got to give majority credit, and we do. This is like school, right? We're gonna get partial credit.
An A for effort? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's partial credit. My final one, Dobbs Ferry will beat Valhalla in the section title. That is clearly happening. The game is happening. This weekend. So that one's on hold, but I picked both teams. So I got to get some kudos for that, right? Those are my predictions, Mars.
Somewhat. You get somewhat.
I did a decent job. I mean, these were bold predictions. In August, I had to make these predictions. So
I mean, the better question is how many of them were bought and sold, and I'm most likely would be more correct on the buy and sell.
Maybe you should have kept count of it.
Oh, all I could tell you is that there's a lot of things I remember I was a little uneasy about, and I'm pretty sure I was right on some, at least a good chunk of them.
They were. All right, let's go to the games. I mean, let's start it off. We're going to start from double A and go all the way down to D. And let's start with double A. Carmel versus Arlington. This is a rematch from week 1 where Carmel won 34-7. Historically, since 2004, Carmel is 9-7 versus Arlington. They have won 3 straight. But these teams have played 16 times since 2004. And they've gone back and forth pretty well. Besides, obviously, Carmel on this little win streak. But let's start with Arlington, Mars. Having a game at home is big. They've won 6 straight. This is the first time in the section title since 2014. I don't think they've won a double A title before. So this is obviously a big opportunity. They've already punched their ticket into the state tourney for the first time ever. But to win a section title will be big for this program, and being at home is a big advantage. And when I look at offensively, Mars, we've talked about this group a lot, and it's about the physicality of this offense. With the tight ends, they like to come out and eye. They'll sprinkle in some spread, but it's all about winning up front, and they want to dominate with that offensive line. And this offensive line deserves a lot of credit. They've really picked up their game. Jake Pascasello, Stephen Schmidt, Isaiah Weathers, Andrew Valeri, Colin Cubberly. I mean, those guys have really taken control of the line of scrimmages and have led the way with this winning streak and this offensive firepower, and their ability to move Carmel's defensive line, who has a lot of bulk at the defensive tackle spot, and at the DN, they have nice length and speed with guys like Fusco and Telesco, is going to be extremely important, not just in the run game, but in pass protection, because Carmel can really get after the quarterback. Another guy, Brad Nieves, their fullback, had a rushing touchdown last week. Him as a runner, a blocker, and receiver. I mean, this guy is a all-around player for them. Also plays defense, but I thought he was really good last week against New Rochelle, getting those hard-earned runs. But him as a lead blocker has been really solid. And we talked about some of the backs that we're anticipating getting a nice chunk of carries. Aiden Chaffee, Lynch. I mean, those guys do a really good job of they have some solid balance. They do a really good job of running through arm tackles. So they're not going to be easy. Obviously, it starts with running the ball with Arlington. That is their identity. If they can't run the ball, I think that's when their offense struggles. So running the ball is going to be huge. And obviously, the play of their quarterback, Resigno, had a touchdown last week. Has been huge during this win streak. He's clearly improved his game, both as a runner and a passer. Just getting more reps, you see him getting more and more comfortable. The last time he played Carmel, he had an INT that led to a touchdown. The quarterbacks in general had 2 INTs. There were sacks. They obviously have to be much cleaner with the ball, and I think this Arlington team is a lot different than the one we saw in week 1. they're playing at a much higher level. Also, their wide receiver, Ian Griffin, Mars, and he is a big play guy. You know when they come in those heavy sets that the coverages, they can't, if they want to put extra bodies in the box, they're going to have to go man coverage, or they're going to have to go one-on-one coverage on Ian Griffin, which opens things up. They like to put him in the slot. They like to do some RPO stuff with him. Sometimes it's a little dangerous because Carmel has good length and they like to bump and run, but they may be able to get some couple double moves with Ian Griffin. If they can get the pass protection up front, is going to be big. So I'm expecting them to throw out a bunch of condensed formations. Can some of these other receivers step up? I know when they get in second, third, and long, they're going to bracket coverage towards Ian Griffin. Can some of these other guys make big plays? They got to be careful with some of the RPO stuff because Carmel, the defensive line, when they don't get home, they raise their arms and they bat balls down. Defensively, Mars, last time they played Carmel, I thought they got hurt with the condensed formations and running to the outside and play action. So I would imagine Carmel's going to try to see if they fix that. Carmel will hit you with multiple formations. They'll give you the heavy, they'll give you some spread, they'll give you some like 3-back tight formations, wildcat. So they have to be prepared for a lot of formation wreck, but it all starts with stopping the run. The defensive line has size, the linebackers are aggressive, and they're going to have to step up into the tackle box. And this secondary, I thought, has been improving. They've done a better job of preventing big plays. Defensive back Newman has made some plays. Ian Griffin, we know, has made some plays. But how are they going to play against this physical wide receiver core? They got to try to get Carmel into the spread more, right? If they stay in those heavy sets, it probably means Carmel's controlling the football. And the guy, Joe McGann, on defense, he's been playing pretty good. I wanted to give him a shout out. He had a sack last week. He's been causing some pressure. If they can get him in second, third, and long, maybe they can rush the passer. They've done a good job of creating pressure. Got to keep Dall in the pocket. Let's go to Carmel, Mars. They returned to the Section 1AA title for the first time since 2019. Again, that was 2 seasons ago, but they lost to New Rochelle, so they're back into the game. Offensively, they're going to play their game. They're going to rely on this offensive line that's also been playing really well. Telesco, Danvin, Kane, Boland, Briante. Bring in their tight ends like Fusco, their fullbacks, Rosa 40, and they're going to run inside and they're going to run off tackle. I think you're going to see a lot of condensed formations, and they're going to hit you with the pitch sweeps, the off-tackle runs, bring in some of those tight formation receivers, line up close to the line of scrimmage, and try to get outside with some jet sweeps and play action. Because these guys, they block well in space. The linemen block well in space. The backs have blocked well in space, and they're going to rely on it. And their running back, Josh Massey, Mars, over 100 yards in 3 straight games. He has been an absolute beast. This is a guy who shows a lot of balance when he's running the football. And then they sprinkle in the other guys, Dylan Shields, Rosa 40, Keating. But to me, I think the X factor in this game is the quarterback, Kevin Dall, Mars. Getting him out on the edge, the play action passing. The last 2 seasons, Mars, I thought he has been the one that has been made some back-breaking plays versus Arlington. And you know that, again, this is another big opportunity. If Arlington wants to win, they have to keep Dall in the pocket because he is really, really solid when plays break down. He makes something out of nothing. It could be back-breaking for this defense. And I think they're going to try to, they have a size advantage at the wide receiver spot against Arlington's corners, right? They have big physical wideouts like Fiore and DeLeo. They'll do the play action to guys like Fusco, and then they have, the shifty guy in the slot in K. But to me, can this offensive line pass protect? This defensive line has been improving for Arlington. Can they pass protect? I think it'll help with the run game and also help with the screen game. Carmel does a pretty good job with screens, especially to the running back spot. Defensively, Mars, this is the number 1 defense. I think the defensive ends need to use their length and their speed to generate some penetration. These defensive tackles got to anchor down. They got to anchor down. They can't get moved off their spot. I thought last time the defensive won early downs and got them into second and third and long where they can rush the passer. Again, to me, this Carmel secondary has good size and speed. They're very aggressive. They want to take away the short stuff, force Arlington to hold onto the ball to allow those guys to get after the quarterback. But they have to be careful of guys like Ian Griffin on double moves and stuff like that, getting beat deep. I know they like to be really aggressive, but they have to be wary of him, especially Ian Griffin in the slot. That's where they like to do their quick slants, their RPO stuff. And be wary of the quarterback counters. Rosigno really has emerged as a threat running the football. Mars, what do you want to talk about in this one before we go, obviously, to our matchup, player to watch, and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely an interesting game because I can't remember the last time a team was playing the section championship at home. It might have been your team when you were playing in Mayapack, and the section title game was in Mayapack
2010,
in 2010. And I feel like that's such a big advantage for Arlington to be able to play on their home field, to have their whole community come out for the game. But when you look at what Arlington's going to do, you're definitely going to see like a lot of power football. I mean, it really has a lot to do with the offensive line. They've been extremely dominant this run that they've had, and they have to continue to play like that, especially in this game against a very good defense that Carmel has, especially this defensive line that has just been dominant, right? So the question is going to be whether or not this offensive line can match the physicality and the aggressiveness that this D-line poses, and they're going to have to rely on some of the key cogs of this offense, like Brad Nieves, Lynch, and Shafee, but obviously Rossignol is going to be such a big piece of this. I mean, you have to have a fantastic game, almost like a perfect game from all of these guys, because Carmel is just so good on the defensive side and so aggressive that you really need to play a just top level type of offense to be able to move on them. And defensively, you have to match that same mentality, right? You have to be able to slow down this offensive line and these skill players that Carmel has. I mean, they're going to try to run you over. And when you look at just Carmel's point of view, their offensive line is considered the best, or possibly one of the best in Section 1. So, they're going to try to run the ball to open up the play action, and they have so many weapons that they could use to try to get to the outside. So you're going to have like Massey and Shields, and obviously Dall is going to be the guy that, well, in my opinion, is the player to watch. But the matchup, in my eyes, is going to be the Arlington's offensive line versus Carmel's D line. I feel like they it's a good rivalry right there, because you have Arlington's offensive line who's big, who has their bruisers, and then you have Carmel who can match that, right? And I wonder who's going to have the advantage, because whoever does have the line of scrimmage advantage here, I think will win the game. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, and you kind of took I'm actually. It's an interesting matchup, that offense versus defensive line, but I did actually a breakdown of both rushing offenses, because I wanted the audience to see both offensive line, how they block, how the tight ends, the backs block. Both have been dominant forces. We'll let the audience see how good they are. For this video, we're going to talk about Arlington and Carmel's offense, and how both these offensive lines, tight ends, fullbacks, do a really good job blocking, opening up the run game, which tends to open up other plays like quarterback counters, quarterback sweeps, play action pass for both offenses. I'm going to start with Arlington, and their offensive line has been extremely impressive as the season has gone along. They have done a really good job of moving bodies, and they like to come out with these condensed formations, whether it's in the eye, and run right at you. And we're going to focus in on this offensive line, the fullbacks, doing a really good job of moving bodies and giving these tailbacks, which still hit you with multiple guys, and they can run through arm tackles, an opportunity to succeed. And let's watch it right here. Again, you're going to see them get a nice kick-out block right here. You'll see a few one-on-one blocks. I want you to focus in on the center block who has to block this D-tackle. He's got to seal this guy off using foot speed right here. And then Nieves, who's done a really good job as a lead blocker, running the ball. But I want to focus in on his blocking on this play. Let's watch. Right, he has done a really good job leading the way. Again, look at this. Really good seal right here by the center. Look at him turn the defender's body. Look at these linemen getting up to the second level. And here you go. One-on-one blocking. Again, look at his really good job right here. Keeps his hands inside. Cut-off block at the second level. Nice block by the fullback meeting defender in the hole. Kick-out block. And here is the alley. And the running back's going to hit it. Again, he can run through those arm tackles. Here's another one. Again, tied into the right. This time running behind Big Coverly. You're going to get a double team block on the right. Fullback is going to lead. This time they're going to be pulling a guard. But just focus in on this play side. And they can move bodies. Really good job right here in the center, turning the defender. Again, no penetration backside, but look at this push. And you can see the push coming and watching the edge of the fullback right here. Lead blocking. Boom, look at that big shot. Open things up. And again, running with some power right there. And you have seen this on their win streak. This time in the gun with two backs, but it doesn't change, right? Another condensed formation. They want to try to condense this defense and show that they can run with power. This time a quarterback counter, right? Because of focusing on these tailbacks, they're going to fake one way, pull these linemen backside. Again, watch Big Coverly pulling around here. Nice kick-out block by the tight end. And look at these guys. A nice fake, draws everyone in. Again, no penetration backside, which is huge. Watch these linemen keeping their head inside, and look at the seal right here, creating the alley. Opens things up for a big play. Let's go to Carmel. I mean, they like to use condensed formations. You can see a tight end over here, a couple fullbacks into the boundary. Doesn't feel like a lot of space, but they don't need a lot of space. Right? They're going to run a pitch sweep, and it's going to show the ability of these backs to maneuver in tight areas and these guys to get one-on-one blocks. I mean, this is a big one right here. They bring in Fusco, their tight end, who almost acts like another lineman with how well he blocks. He's going to be blocking one of the best defensive ends in the class. You can see this tackle down block, and they're going to be pulling a guard. You can watch these guys move. And really good job sealing to the inside, and now you get these one-on-one blocks out on the edge, and Massey doesn't need a lot of space. Guy's a talented back. Again, looks like, okay, this thing's been cut off. Nice little gain right here, but he doesn't give in. All right, watch the power, watch the balance. Going to fight his way for this touchdown right here. I love the lineman jumping in there and pushing him in. That's great. Let's go to another play. Again, more condensed formation, bringing the tight end. The wide receiver's close to the line of scrimmage. Two tight ends, actually. And motioning this guy across. They're going to run a jet sweep. Again, this time the defense does a pretty good job of taking away the outside, but these running backs show good vision, and they block all the way to the whistle. Right? Really good job of keeping the outside, but they forcing everyone to rally. And if you don't, they'll hit these backside gaps. Okay, he puts his foot in the dirt. Gets north. I love the linemen keeping their eyes downfield. Look at this block right here. Down the field. Look at the downfield block right here. Again, this is what springs this touchdown. For a huge, huge touchdown. Again, being able to run the ball in condensed formations, running the ball downfield, downhill, opens things up in the play action game. Carmel likes to use that as well. You can see the eye right here. They're going to give you a fake to the left. You can see a guard pulling to the right. Really going to draw these linebackers in. And they're going to be running a post. Because you can see that there's about 9 defenders within 6 yards of the line of scrimmage. And they're trying to stop the run. So the play action will open things up, especially for crossers. And they're going to run a post right here to draw the safety to go deep, which is going to open up the tight end coming underneath. If he stays short to the tight end, they'll throw it over the top, right? And this is a good read by the quarterback, a nice play action fake. It always starts with that, but you can see the linebackers. They didn't, because they stepped up hard for the run, they do not pick up this tight end, which opens things up. I would imagine Carmel's going to be using this quite a few times as well. This is going to be a real interesting matchup. How good they are. Mars, the player to watch, I mean, you brought up Kevin Dall. My players to watch, and I'll give one on each side. Defensive lineman Telesco of Carmel. This is a guy who made some big plays. He had an INT touchdown the first time around. A guy with a lot of speed. Going up against the size of Arlington's offensive line. Him going up against Cubberley and stuff like that. You know, can he be disruptive? Can he set the edge using his speed? Because, he does have a size disadvantage there. And for Arlington, it's Ian Griffin. I mean, to me, he's the biggest playmaker, one of the biggest playmakers in the passing game for Arlington. He can also move around and run the ball. This is a big guy he has that straight line speed who can hit big chunk plays. Mars, before we go to the other game, I did actually an interview with quarterback Kevin Dall of Carmel. And I talked a little bit about him and the team and the upcoming game, and we'll let the audience see. Joining us now, he is the quarterback of the Carmel Rams. I want to welcome to the show Kevin Dall. Kevin, welcome to the show. We appreciate you giving us a few moments.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And Kevin, obviously this is a huge game coming up, and we'll get into the game. We'll get into how the team is feeling, and we'll talk a little bit about your opponent. But I wanted to talk a little bit about yourself. You're a multi-sport athlete, big baseball guy, right?
Yep.
And you play the quarterback spot. So I know when I first started watching you back in the spring, sometimes you would throw like a shortstop, and coach would tell you, hey, you're a big baseball guy. Can you tell me the transition from playing baseball to the quarterback spot? What are some things that baseball has helped you with that translation, and what are some things that you had to overcome going into the quarterback spot that was more difficult thing?
Well, Coach K always used to say that, or he still does say sometimes, that I still throw like I'm playing baseball. But, I think baseball helped me, like, probably with my arm strength. But one thing I had to overcome was striding too long on my throws. And Coach K has done a bunch of drills with me and the other quarterbacks just to shorten my stride and help me deliver the ball more accurately.
Now, one thing I know you do really well, and you've improved drastically from the spring to this season, but when plays break down, I seem to be when you're at your most electric, when you have to scramble, when you get, running downfield. Do you enjoy more hitting a deep ball, or do you enjoy kind of breaking the pocket and scrambling for a big touchdown run?
I think I do like to scramble, but I think when the play works out the way it's supposed to work out and we're running deep pass and I'm able to step up and make a throw, I think that's a little bit better. But I do love scrambling. Yeah. Sometimes I got to make some better decisions when I scramble, but for the most part, I do love scrambling.
Obviously, this is a huge game. 2019 was the last time Carmel was in the championship game, lost to New Rochelle. And in the spring season, you guys had a strong season, but there was no section title game, and there was no section playoffs. What does it mean to be in the section title game this time around for you and for the team?
Coach K has only been to he's been to a decent amount, but he's only won one. So we want to get him another one. He deserves it. And it's just, we've been thinking about it all season. We thought we had a chance from the start, and we kept talking about it. We know our goal. We know the spot we want to be. We know this is the game we want to be in, and we've made it here, and we just stayed focused on it, and we want to bring this game home as well.
Now, you guys, like you said, you've been consistent all season long, and just sticking with the offense. You guys obviously have a really strong offensive line and strong running game. But the play action game, and you guys mix in the spread, what did you guys like that you've been doing so far in the playoffs that you could think carry over into next week offensively?
We've been running the ball great. I tell my guys all the time that I trust them over anyone else, and that we can run. If we run the ball for 200 yards, 300 yards every game, let's keep doing that.
Yeah.
When we score that amount of points, 42 points on suffering, then we're not doing anything wrong. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you can't be in a Carmel program and under Coach K without watching film. So obviously you've probably watched a whole lot of film on Arlington. Now you guys played them earlier in the season, but this feels like a drastically different Arlington team than what it was in the beginning of the season. What have you seen from Arlington? I know you probably studied a lot of their defense. What have you seen from their defense that has been, I guess, different from the first time you played that they do well and has impressed you watching the tape?
I mean, the most evident thing is they've gotten a lot better up front. They've always been big, but I think they've been able to use it to their advantage more now. But there's some things that we want to pick on in their defense that we've been saying. Coach, we've been saying all week that Arlington's gotten better, and we got to take them just as serious as we did the first time, but we've also gotten better too. So I think that we can come out and get another win.
That's great. And I without telling me any game plan and what your plan on attack is, what do you guys feel like you need to do this weekend in that game to become section title champions?
Keep running the ball like we've been doing, and you say it every week, mix in some play action pass and pick on the corners a little bit, but I think just stick to our game plan. We get a game plan for every game going into the week, and we stick to it.
Absolutely. And that's all the questions I had, Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking a few moments of time to join the show. Good luck this weekend. I've really enjoyed watching you play all season long.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Mars, let's go to A. And obviously this is, to me, probably one of the game of the all of them are big games, but to me this is the most intriguing one. Rye versus Somers in the section title game. Both these teams have split the series 5-5 since 2004. The last time they played was in 2019. They played twice in 2019, but the last time in 2019 was in the playoffs where Rye won. And again, Rye has won 23 straight games versus Section 1 teams. Let's start with them. They're back in the section title game, which they were in 2019 when they won. The last loss to a Section 1 team was actually in 2019 during the regular season versus Somers. And when I look at the offense, Mars, I thought last week they ran the ball hard, and they brought a lot of condensed formations with an H-back, with tight wide receivers, and they attacked off tackle and to the outside with their running back Caden Whaling, with their quarterback Kovacs. They had a really nice counter with Barford, and you saw a heavy dose of it. And I'm expecting to see similar mindset this time around. But Somers, they have a really difficult front to run against. So to me, this offensive line, they came to play last week, led by guys like Cunningham and Garnett. They're going to have to show up again. They're an undersized group, but they are scrappy, and they're going to have to attack off tackle and the edge again. To me, the counter game is going to be big. Maybe they mix in a new counter play than the one they did last week, but because Somers is so aggressive, they're going to have to hit some counter plays to compensate for that aggressiveness. And running back Whalen, I mean, he's going to have to be huge in this one. He's going to have to make a couple runs that show he's the best running back in the class. They're going to need him to break some tackles. They're going to need him to make guys miss in the hole. He's going to have to be huge for them because it's not going to be easy to generate long drives versus Somers. You're going to have to hit some chunk plays. To me, I don't know the status of their fullback Tepedino. Obviously, he's a tremendous player for them on both sides of the ball, and at fullback spot, he really is a great lead blocker for them. But I thought their tight end and kind of stepped in as the H-back Surhoff did a pretty good job filling in that void. This pass attack, though, has to be better, Mars, especially off play action. I thought they struggled last week. Quarterback Kovacs, he made some nice plays with his legs, made a couple of throws, but he was 6 of 13 at 65 yards, had the INT. I thought he just held onto the ball a little bit too long. I thought he did a pretty solid job of buying time, but when it's open, just run. Like, if you're not comfortable with the throw, just go, right? Just run. Don't hesitate. Don't juke around because Somers' defense is extremely fast. You got to make one cut and go. And I thought he escaped the pocket pretty well. Sometimes he held it a little bit too much. Some of these receivers are also going to have to step up and win because you're going to get some man-to-man bump and run coverage. Guys like McComb, McSweeney, Barford, Berkery, their tight end Surhoff. They're going to have to make some plays in this game. This offensive line gave up 5 sacks. It was a mix of, again, getting beat, but it was also a mix of just holding the ball a little bit too much, so they definitely have to be better on that end. Defensively, Mars, outside the first quarter last week, I thought this defense overall the last few weeks has been tremendous. They like to stunt, whether it's internally or off the edge, with their linebackers or with their DBs. They have a lot of faith in their DBs. Rye is going to play how they play defensively, which is they like to disguise their coverages. They like to disguise stunts. They'll show you one thing when you're at the line of scrimmage, and before the ball snap, they're going to change into something else. So to me, they got to try to create some confusion, play their game doing that. They put a lot of pressure on their DBs. The question is, these wide receivers, Mapac couldn't take advantage of that with their wide receivers in the passing game. Somers' wide receivers and their quarterback are playing a notch above what Rye saw last week. So can they do that bump and run coverage with them? Are they going to have to mix it up more into some zone and not stunt as much? Or maybe they do a couple zone blitzes. We're going to have to see how Rye is going to play it because these receivers, one-on-one coverage is going to be really, really difficult. But they need these secondary guys to step up in a big way. And I think I would lean more towards playing their game where it's getting after the quarterback, sending guys like Barford, Garnett, who was tremendous last week, had 11 tackles, 2 tackles for loss at that blocked field goal. Surhoff was really strong. Swarak, he had 7 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. They got to generate pressure, whether it is with stunts or whether it's sending their front 4. Because these DBs, they're going to do some bump and run, like I said. They're going to be in the face of these wide receiver guys like Wexler, who had that fair catch on the onside kick, which was huge for them. McComb, Goldzer, McSweeney. This is going to be a slugfest for this defense. This defense is playing at a high level, and they're going to have to step up again this week. Somers, Mars, I think they've been playing extremely, complete, complementary football. They haven't played a close game since week 1. I mean, they have been beating up on teams. Sometimes it's been over at halftime now, multiple weeks in a row. And I'm going to start offensively. And just blowing by teams is a good and a bad thing, right? It shows that you're very, really talented, play good football, but you've also never been in a tense situation in weeks, right? They've never gone into the fourth quarter with a game tied or down a score. So you don't even know how Somers is going to finish games. right? Because the backups are in by the fourth quarter, especially the last month. But offensively, again, you're going to see a mix of wing T. They like to attack off tackle on the edge, and out of those wing T looks, the play action game has been huge for them. That's going to be the remedy. They're not really a run in between the guards type offense, right? They're really attack off tackle, attack the edge, get these linemen moving bodies, get these linemen blocking at the second level, which do a really good job of. Guys like I mentioned constantly, guys like Polito and Carino, their tight end Faller. I mean, those guys, they can move people. And again, how are they going to withstand the speed of Rye? They're trying to disguise their stunts is going to be interesting to see what Somers does. But they got a few guys who can really hurt you. Their fullback, Marcus, he's a guy who runs mostly in between the tackles. They'll do the off-tackle stuff with him, but you'll see some of the traps with him. But Matt Kapika, Ravi Das, those guys have been playing really solid, attacking the edge of the defense. And then the play action, getting their wide receiver, Mancuso, who, Mars, he has been an absolute stud for them. Even when you try to double cover him, he has that speed, and he's a smart route runner. And he's a guy who finds open space. He's going to be tough to guard one-on-one. If they're going to give you bump and run one-on-one with a safety over the top, it'll open things up for everybody else. That's the kind of, he's going to draw that kind of attention in this game. So can they go into some max protection and get Mancuso on those one-on-ones? That's going to leave some big opportunities for them. And their quarterback, Matt Fitzsimons, I mean, he's made some real impressive throws. Even when there's pressure last week in Pelham, there were a couple times Pelham was sending the pressure. He made the correct read. He stood in the pocket strong, made some big throws for them. And if he could do that again, if he can recognize the stunts, find the one-on-one matchup, find the open guy, Somers is hard to stop offensively, Mars. They really are. They really are. They do a lot of different things. Defensively, the front seven is going to play a major role. Obviously, it starts with stopping guys like Whalen, and the quarterback runs with Kovacs is going to be huge. So I'm looking at these linebackers, Krause and Kennedy, going to have to play big. But this defensive line, to me, probably the best defensive line in the class. Right, Dylan Faller, his guy, has been an absolute beast. He's been unblockable. Line up as a nose guard. He's got long arms. He moves real well. Causes a lot of penetration, but he's not alone, guys. Polito, Kreco is another guy who's been making a lot of plays. Their ability to win at the point of attack and generate pressure without blitzing is big. Now, they will send pressure, but sometimes they don't need to because those guys can get there and they can drop a bunch of guys into coverage, which makes it hard to complete passes consistently. They got to keep Kovacs in the pocket, though. That is going to be big. He's a real good guy at buying time, allowing his receivers to get open. So that's going to be huge, that they're going to have to be smart when they rush. Don't let them break the pocket. And I'm looking at these DBs, Olifers, Mancuso, Marcus. How are they going to defend against some of these skill guys that Rye have that also have good speed? To me, it's going to be real interesting. Another thing, Mars, to point out special teams. There, Tommaso Granny of Rye, he had the game-winning kick last week, and Luke Savino of Somers. Special teams is going to be a big one in this one. Field possession, getting points when drives stall. Look for those two guys to make an impact in this game as well, Mars. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, this is like you keep mentioning, every game that we're going to talk about is, the last game of their, I mean, not the last game, but the last game of the section, of the Section 1, title. So all these games are important. All these games are big-time games, but this one seems like the more of the big-time game where everyone's watching. Everyone wants to see what happens here. And I feel like it's really interesting because, we go, just think about the preseason. Think about how this year started, where Rye was seen as the perennial, they're going to win the title automatically. And then Somers was that question, what are they going to be like? And now, Rye just came off a big win against Mayapack in overtime, and they were considered to be the underdogs in that game. And Somers is now seen as the most dominant team because they have been dominating everybody. So it's really interesting to see what's going to happen here. But when you look at Rye, I feel like they did play a lot better game against their O-line got tested, right? And that's because you're playing against a Mayapack D-line that was very big, very aggressive, and they did very well, in my opinion. Now, granted, it was a fight for defense. Mayapac's defense was able to halt any major drive that Rye was leading, but when they needed it most, the offensive line showed up, and they were able to match that aggressiveness and that chippiness that they needed to compete against this Mayapack defense. And I think that's going to be kind of the same story this week. I think Rye's offensive line needs to match.
And I think they'll get some big run plays, but they got to be better in the passing game.
No, I agree. No, and I think when I look at some of the things that they need to do would be, like you mentioned before, some misdirection plays. You need to have some plays that will catch Somers being too aggressive and kind of capitalize on that. And obviously, you need to have more of a passing game because, Somers' defense is top-notch. You can't just stick to a one-dimensional type of offense. I'm not saying that Rye does, but they were unable to be more dynamic like they normally are. So they have to now kind of add more to the game, right? Obviously, Caden Willing needs to show out. We all know that, but Kovacs needs to play, right? He needs to match that higher level.
Not just with his legs.
Not just with his legs, but with his arms and his legs. And I think that you have a lot of skilled players on the outside that can help make big plays. But the big question I have is going to be the offensive line and also the defensive line for Rye. Because defensively, they played very well. Was it 32 yards?
45 after the first quarter.
After the first quarter.
First two drives.
32. Wasn't 32 in the second half or something like that?
I think it could have been. But I know it was 45 after the first two drives.
So 45 after the first two drives is fantastic, right? And they need to have that same aggressiveness and that same passion.
I was impressed how they stopped the run against the bigger, and they're going to have to bring that same intensity this week against the run.
So they have to be able to do that in order to keep Somers' offense from just doing the same thing they've done all season and playoffs long. Because when you look at Somers, the offensive line is, if it's not Carmel, it's Somers' offensive line that's the best in Section 1. And they just have been moving bodies left and right. So they have that same physicality that Mayapack had, but I think they're just more efficient on the offensive line side. And I think that's such a dangerous combination of having a dynamic offense where you can easily run the ball, but then you have Matt Fitzsimons, who's been getting better and better, right? I think that's the most impressive thing about the kid is that looking at him week one versus now looks so different, and he's just
got such a command now. He's making good reads, good throws,
and I think it's such a scary thing to see. And I think that Somers looks like a well-oiled machine. And for Rye's perspective, you need to kind of, they're going to give you the heat. They're going to use their speed to try to get to you. But from the Somers side, I would say you have to pick up on a lot of the blitzes they're going to be sent. They're going to send some heat. They're going to give you a lot of different ways to send the heat. And you're going to have to pick up on where the blitz is coming from. And obviously Fitzsimons is going to have to throw it to the right guy based on what he sees in front of him. So the question is going to be, in my opinion, will Rye's offensive line be able to withstand this front seven that Somers has, because they have been so good, right? They have been able to cause mayhem, whether they're setting stunts or they're not. So Rye needs to really it's really on the offensive line again. Like we said this last week about they're going to be the most tested group here, and it's the same challenge now.
And they passed that one. Now
they passed. Now it's the second. It's the final boss battle, right? If you're looking at the offensive line perspective. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see how they react here.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, Mars, what do you think is the matchup before I go to my matchup?
I guess my matchup would be Rye's offensive line versus this front seven. Offensive line and Caden Willing versus the front seven from Somers.
Mm-hmm. To me, I'm looking at the other side. I'm not looking at Rye's defensive front. Has been playing really well. Their ability to stop the run last week and the last couple weeks have been impressive versus this Somers offense. And the Somers offense, they like to run the ball and be balanced using play action. I think they might have more success out of the spread this week. And I'll show the audience what I'm talking about. For this video, we're going to talk about Rye's defense versus Somers offense. And I've spoken about both these units a few times already. I'm going to start with Rye's defense, and for this video, focusing on stopping the run. And this unit has been playing at a really high level the last few weeks. And I like the way that Rye's defensive philosophy is that we're not going to sit. We're going to come after you. We're going to stunt. We are going to what I call scramble, which is disguising your coverages, disguising your stunts. It's a fun defense to watch. But to be able to do that, you have to have smart football players, explosive football players, and you have to trust in your secondary. And Rye certainly does that. And we're going to go over a couple plays of stopping the run. You can see Mayapack coming out here with two backs. They got the 5 linemen, 2 receivers to the right, 1 to the left. And right away when they break the huddle, get to the line of scrimmage, Rye is going to show you one thing, right? They're going to show you one look, and usually when you snap the ball, they're going to show a different look. Whether it's a different coverage, whether it's a different, someone coming off the edge and stunting. They're going to give you something. And most people think when they do this kind of scramble, it's just to confuse the quarterback. And it is true to try to disguise coverages and confuse the quarterback on where to go with the ball, but also to confuse the lineman. Right? They want to try to confuse them, slow them down so that they can use their speed and create penetration. And again, you're going to see this right away, right? If you look at this, they have 5 linemen, 2 backs, that's 7 guys. On the defensive side, there's only 6. 3 down linemen, 2 guys, this hanger on right here. So you think you have the advantage there, so they're going to run the football. They're at the line of scrimmage, they're going to run the football. They have the numbers advantage. You can even say 8 if you include the quarterback. But watch what Rye does. Just before the snap, now look. There was 3 guys on this side, now 1 guy coming over. Right? He's coming into the box. Look at these guys, press man. I mean, you have to have a lot of faith in your secondary to do this. Right? To have only 1 safety over the top, man across the board. These are talented guys. I mean, they can run, they can bump and run with you, but look what they're doing now. Now it's 7-on-7. And I want you to focus in on this guy, Jack Garnett. One of the best defensive players in the class. Extremely explosive. But look how those linebackers moved. Look how the edge defender comes. Now look at this. 2 guys coming off the edge. They only block 1. The linemen don't compensate for this guy right here. And this becomes a loss. Look at the swarming right there. I love that too. Not wait. Attack. Okay, you say maybe let's get out of the extra wide receivers so they don't, create that confusing look. Now let's just go heavy. And Mapac tries to go heavy right here. 2 backs. You got tight end. You got a wing. I mean, they just want to run power football. Right? Try to isolate your speed. But Rye showed up. I mean, Rye really brought it. And you can see all these guys near the line of scrimmage. And then watch this again. How much faith? They're going to try to run the ball. Right? They're going to pull a couple linemen. Power running. But watch the linebackers move. Again, focus in on this guy right here, Garnett. He's going to be coming on a stunt. We send the guy off the edge. This guy's creeping in to come off the edge. Watch the linebacker come over the top. I mean, they're not going to sit. They're not going to wait. They're going to bring it. But a lot of credit's got to come to this line too. Look at them not getting moved right here. About a 1-yard push. Taking up linemen. Look at these guys swarming to the ball. Creating that penetration. Finishing them off. Okay, now they come into the spread. 2v2. And again, it appears they have the numbers advantage, right? 6 versus 5. If you want to include the quarterback, that's 7. 3 down linemen, 2 linebackers, and again, they got 3 guys over here, 3 guys over here with the safety, and it's going to move. I mean, they're on the line right before it gets snapped, and this takes a lot of practice. You're going to see them move. Here he comes creeping in. And again, man covered. And these safeties will bounce around. Some of them will roll up, cover the hook to curl zone, or try to rob, or they'll play back. But watch these guys. Watch these guys right. Look at him get his hands on the tackle. Look at the linebacker reading it. He's going to attack, not wait. And that's how you stop the run. But let's go to Somers. And again, Somers is a real balanced offense. I showed them a couple times this season as well. They're going to mix up between the wing tee and the spread. And they love to run and hit you off tackle and outside. And they will shift. They will try to catch you and make sure you can align correctly. And here's an example. Look at them shift right there. Look at the defense trying to scramble. They get there in time, but they have trust in these guys who can block. These linemen can block. They can move. These backs can block. And they want to get off tackle and out on the edge. And look at this. I mean, look at this job right here. Great job sealing off. There's a pancake. There's a seal right there. The kick out block. And it's going to leave that lane open. And you get this a lot. Right? You're going to get 10 yards. What I do think Rye is going to have probably the most success is going into that spread, right? And you know Rye is going to be coming. Somers is going to be going into the spread, trying to throw the football. If they can't run with power, if Rye does a good job stopping the running game. And this pass attack has been really strong. It's because they have receivers who can beat that one-on-one coverage. And you can see right here, trips to the left, one receiver to the right. You don't see is the safety over the middle, right? Cheating a little bit towards the side because this guy right here is a stud, Mancuso. But Pelham, they didn't want to sit and wait either. They wanted to come after the quarterback, and I think Rye is going to do something similar. They want to get pressure on this quarterback, and the quarterback make the correct decision and make good, accurate throws. And let's watch it. Again, safety is cheating over to the side. You can see a man right in his face, similar to what Rye did versus Mayapack, and they're going to run a fade. Can he trust him to beat this kind of coverage? starts up front. Look at the protection right here. Pretty good pocket. Steps into the throw, and watch the accuracy here. I mean, this is great coverage. Safety trying to come over the top and help. But look at the ball placement. Look at the body control. That's tremendous. Big time game. Last one I'm going to show right here. Again, look at these 4 guys over. It's trips to the right. Man on down here. Again, this time there is no safety over the top. They got 4 guys to the trip side, and Pelham's going to try to create a little bit of confusion as well. They're actually going to stunt this guy. So it's really going to be 3-on-3 and 1-on-1 backside. They're bringing pressure. 2 blitzers coming. Watch the quarterback here. He hikes the ball. He's looking towards the trips. Right? There's nothing quick there. He knows that pressure is coming. So he actually going to go to his second read, which is going backside to that 1-on-1 post. I love this right here. Look at him stand in the pocket, finds him, and watch the accurate throw with pressure. That's pretty right there. This is going to be a heavyweight fight. Mars, the player to watch for me, I'm looking at Caden Whaling from Rye. He's going to have to be big in this one. When you're the underdog, when the other team might be more talented than you need your best players to make wow plays. And so Caden Whaling is going to have to be huge for this team, running the ball, receiving out of the backfield, blocking for the quarterback. He's going to have to be big. And to me, I'm looking at the other guy on Somer's defense, Dylan Fowler. This guy has just been so good. To me, he's the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. Just been such a dominant presence. Polito's good too, but Fowler is a guy in the middle that he's so disruptive with his length and his speed. So those are 2 guys that I want to talk about. And I also did an interview for this game as well, and it's Caden Whaling, that bad man at the running back spot for Rye. And we talked a little bit about him, the team, and the game coming up. Joining us now, he is the running back of Rye High School. We want to welcome to the show Caden Whaling. Thank you so much for joining us, Caden.
How's it going?
It's going well, and it's a huge week for you. I know it has been – you came into the season playing extremely well. You guys were running the football really well. Then you got hurt with some injuries, tried to come back 2 weeks ago, tweaked the ankle a little bit. The first thing that probably everyone wants to know watching this, how are you feeling? I thought you looked pretty solid last week running the ball. How's your body feeling? No one's fully healthy, but how are you doing overall?
I mean, yeah, it's late season, so no one's fully healthy, but I'm feeling good. It felt great to be back out there this week after having my John Jay game shortened, but
yeah,
missing those games was a terrible feeling, so just to be able to be back out there is good, and the ankle's feeling great.
That's good. Now, back in 2019, you were a sophomore, and I felt like, that team of Rye who made that run, you really came onto the scene as the season went along and towards the playoffs, in my opinion. But that was the last time we had a section title game. In the spring, we had the regionals, but it's not the same as a section title. What does it mean to you and to the team making it back? Really, you guys are the defending champs. So what does it mean getting back to this game for you and the program?
I mean, it's obviously a huge deal. That's kind of the goal we set out to achieve every year, and just not having that goal be able to be achieved last year was a weird feeling. And it's weird being the defending section champs technically, because we didn't have one last year, being that was 2 years ago. So it's definitely awesome to be back in the section championship. It's a great feeling. We worked hard to be here, so it's nice to have that rewarded, but it's crunch time now.
Yeah. And just talking before we get into the actual game, you've had a tremendous career at Rye. You're actually going to go down as one of the more prolific runners of the football in Section 1. Obviously, you have a lot of natural talent. You're a multi-sport athlete, going to go play college lacrosse, right? I always admired your patience and your vision and the burst that you showed running the football. And so I wanted to ask you, whether there's young football players watching this, whether there's young youth guys from Rye watching this, how did you develop those skills over time? Who has helped you along the way? What has gotten to Caden Whaling to this point as being one of the more prolific rushers in Section 1?
I mean, my dad definitely helped me a lot. He played football growing up and in college, and he's coached me from such a young age. He was my coach when I started tackle football in 3rd grade. So, I mean, just being on the football field this long has definitely been the biggest part of helping my skills and patience and running and all that you mentioned get to the point it is today. It's just reps and going hard in practice and obviously going hard in the games.
Yeah. And I call you a bad man running the ball because you are a bad man running the ball if you watched my videos before. And Rye is a program, I mean, you guys are undefeated. You've won 23 straight games versus Section 1 football teams. And this year you guys had to go through adversity, right? You've had some injuries. There have been games that you went down and had to come back. You know, talking like last week, you went down 14-0 to Mayapack versus Pelham. You were down at halftime. Where does the resiliency come from Rye? I mean, you don't win 23 straight games just on talent. You guys have to be resilient. You guys have to win close games. Who has taught the resiliency in this program, and kind of how would you describe Rye as a program that have gone on this winning streak?
I mean, obviously is a top to bottom thing. So the resiliency comes from our coaches staying calm, but getting on us at the same time. And that sort of calmness, yet expectations of what we're supposed to be doing kind of trickles down and then the captains pick it up and then all the players pick it up. And we're kind of all holding each other accountable to just persevere and just meet the expectations that we have for ourselves. And taking it on a week by week basis definitely helps a lot too. Like putting the week behind us, learning from it. So Pelham, we learned how to respond. That was the first time we've been down at half all season. We learned how to respond, come out at halftime, and face the adversity. So that definitely obviously helped us. And Mayapack said we need to flip the switch a little bit earlier. So just learning from each week, but moving on from it and not dwelling on it definitely helps with overcoming adversity.
And obviously every week you try to learn and bring things that worked well into the following week. And last week versus Mayapack, although it wasn't an offensive explosion, after the first quarter, you guys were able to run the football with some consistency, running with you, running with Kovacs, doing some counters with Barford and some play action pass. Again, what did you like that you did last week that you think can carry over to this week from the offensive side?
I mean, everyone was just playing to the whistle, whether it be blocking to the whistle, running to the whistle, fighting, keeping those legs driving for the extra yards. I mean, obviously it's been said football is a game of inches, and it certainly came down to that in that game. So, I mean, that's just something we got to do every week and keep improving on that, which we did last game.
Now, I'm sure you guys can't be a great program without watching some film. And when you go into this week playing Somers, what have you seen on film from Somers? They are obviously a very talented team, also undefeated. What has impressed you about them that they do well that you've seen on tape?
Like I just said, blocking to the whistle, they certainly do that. All those guys want to get after the guy on the other side of the line of scrimmage, and that definitely is impressive. They're a great group of players, and I'm really excited for what is panning out to be a great battle.
The last thing you guys are, it's crazy. Defending champs, won 23 straight versus Section 1. The last loss you have was versus Somers. You guys are actually the underdogs going into this game, which is pretty wild. Do you guys know that you're the underdog? Do you feel that you're the underdog? How do you guys garner that and take it into the game, or is it's just noise on the outside?
I mean, you could say anything's just noise, but certain things definitely motivate us. We like being the underdogs, and whether or not we were the favorites or not last year or whatever game it is, we try to go into every game having an underdog mentality, trying to find if there is press against us, try to have that motivate us or not, maybe create some. Just having that underdog mentality is huge because that kind of brings the scrap, that kind of brings the edge, the chip on your shoulder that you need to get a little fire underneath you before the game.
What do you guys need to do to win? What when Friday ends? What does Rye need to do in the game versus Somers to win the game? Without giving me any game plan, I don't want to know exact, but what do you guys need to do overall to win and become section champs?
I mean, obviously, we have to play a full 4 quarters. Came out a little bit slow versus Mayapack, and getting down like that's not going to be easy versus Somers to come back from. So we need to play a full 4 quarters for sure, and all 4 of those quarters need to be played till the whistle. Every single play as hard as we can, and we got to leave nothing behind on the field. Leave everything there.
Well, Caden, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate the time you've taken out. Good luck this weekend, and I look forward to watching you play.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. All right, Mars, let's go to the next game. Let's go to Class B. And Nanuet versus Pleasantville, Mars. These two teams actually have split the series since 2004, 8-8. So Pleasantville, though, The last time they played was in the spring when they won 24-7. So that was the last time they played, but overall, these teams have split the series. And let's talk about Nanuet. The last time they were in the section title in Class B, what was it, 2015, I want to say? So it hasn't been too long ago. Last week, they won versus Byram Hills, 14-10 in stunning fashion at the end. And offensively, Mars, this is a bump and grind offense. I mean, it's not the prettiest looking offense, but what they want to do is they want to be physical with you. They want to run downhill. They want to grind clock and hit a few big plays. And I thought last week was a bit of a struggle, but in the biggest moments, they came through. And they're going to bring in the tight ends. You're going to see 3 backs. You're going to see 2 backs with a wing, and they're going to run inside and they're going to run outside, and they're going to keep doing it over and over. And they'll sprinkle in some spread 2x2 looks and some trips. But the key focus on this offense is James Moran, right? They'll line him up at the tailback spot. They'll line him up as a wing. They'll line him up as a fullback. They'll line him up in the slot. He had 2 touchdowns last week, 1 rushing, 1 receiving. He is their most dynamic player on the offensive side of the ball, and it's because he runs with solid strength, and when he gets in the open field, there's not many people who can catch him. He's very explosive. Pleasantville is tough to run against, especially inside the tackle box, Mars, with some of the size they have at the defensive line and the linebackers who play extremely aggressive. So to me, they're going to probably have to test off tackle and outside, and the play action game is going to be big. Their quarterback runs, the bootlegs, the play action, and possibly even running out of the spread to loosen up some of these boxes that Pleasantville is going to throw at them, especially if they come out with 2 tight ends a lot. They're going to load the box. It's hard to run against Pleasantville. So to me, quarterback Frondy is going to be huge in this one, Mars. Last week, he was 7-15. Again, not the most efficient, but he had a touchdown pass at the end. And can they get a couple chunk plays? I have a feeling this is going to be a low-scoring game, Mars, with these 2 defenses. And the team that can generate some big chunk plays is going to give them the best opportunity. And they're going to need it from their quarterback and some of these wide receivers and tight ends. A guy like Tyler Conjura, he had a big play last week. How is his offensive line? Another question is, how are they going to handle the defensive line of Pleasantville is going to be a big one. This is not the biggest offensive line, but they are very physical. So I'm interested to see that. And there's other guys who can step up and make play. Hollis Bryzan is another running back who runs with a lot of physicality. In this kind of game, you're going to have to run with physicality in this one. This is not going to be a tepid type of game. But else is going to make a big play? Who else is going to do it? Is it Lenosi? Is it Bennett? Who's going to step up for Nanuet outside Moran? Is going to be the key question. Defensively, Mars, this is the number 2 defense. Last week, I know they gave up some yards, but they won in the red zone. They forced turnovers, which led to points on their end. They had an INT. They have to have all eyes on Daniel Picard. That is obviously their big gun right there. Pleasantville has done a really good job the last few weeks getting out on the edge, Mars. And so the defensive line and the linebackers, they have to step up in the running game, and the defensive backs have to do a good job of tackling in space. They got to swarm to the ball. Daniel Picard is really tough to tackle, and they have to have multiple bodies on him, especially on outside runs. To me, can they get Pleasantville behind the chains, Mars? Because Pleasantville likes to stay in front of the chains, which opens up the entire playbook. When they get behind in the chains, they have to go into the spread, and they have to throw out of the spread. That's when Nanuet can generate some pressure, and that is when some turnovers can happen. So to me, can they force a turnover or 2? And then on the offensive side, make a couple chunk plays, which will put them in position to score. When I look at Pleasantville, Mars, they advanced to the section title game for the first time since 2017. Offensively, again, this is another team. Heavy reliance is on the run game, Mars. Again, they want to be ahead of the chains. They want to dictate to the defense. You're going to see under center. You're going to see tight end. You're going to see downhill running. But you'll also see some mix of some spread, some wildcat, which we saw last week with Picard. But a lot of the attack, I think, against Nanuet, because they're also tough to run against inside the tackle box, is going to be off tackle and on the edge. That's where I think it's going to be most of the damage is going to try to do. And again, I talked about him before. Daniel Picard, Mars, line him up at wide receiver, running back, quarterback. They're going to move him around. They'll throw it to him. He's had 8 touchdowns the last 3 weeks. I call him Houdini, Mars, because he's an escape artist. This is a guy who, when things don't look like there's nothing there, he finds a way to make a big play out of it. You want to get him the ball in space. This offensive line, too, though, has really been impressive with their run blocking. They have done a really solid job. They've also matured. They have a mix of a lot of young guys and some veterans. So the run blocking has been really solid. To me, the question is pass blocking, because Nanuet likes to generate pressure. How are they going to hold up? And same thing I said about Nanuet, what I say about Pleasantville. Who is going to step up and hit a couple chunk plays outside of Daniel Picard? That's going to be the big one. It's going to be the quarterbacks. It's going to be LaCapria. It's going to be Aiden Picard who makes a big throw. Can they get some consistency in the passing game? Right? Another guy who can make big plays, and we've seen it all season, Cotter. I mean, he's an important runner for them, but not just as a runner, as a blocker. I thought he's been doing a pretty solid job on some of these jet sweeps and some of these wildcat where he's blocking for Daniel Picard. He's done a pretty solid job of that. He's going to be important as a runner and a blocker. So that's going to be big. And I think points are going to be a premium, Mars. Points are going to be a premium. Some of these young receivers are going to make a play, but also their kicker. Can I give a shout out, John McCarthy? This guy's made a field goal kick in 4 straight games. I mean, points are going to be a premium in this one. And if you have a kicker who can hit some big ones and put some points on the board, he could be a guy who changes this game. And what my opinion would be a low scoring game. Defensively, Mars, this is the number 1 defense. Last week, did a real solid job, I thought, in preventing big plays, especially in the passing game. You're going to see a lot of heavy looks. I mentioned with Nanuet, 2 tight ends and stuff like that. This defensive line, guys like Gordon, guys like Kisley, how are they going to dominate up front? The linebackers and Miller and Rafsky, Horrigan. This is obviously going to be a fight, 4-quarter fight. Nanuet is going to test you consistently. They're like a body puncher. They just punch you in the body. And then Moran, once he finds space, that's where the haymaker comes. Right? So you're going to see a lot of body punches. How does this defensive line and front 7 hold up for 4 quarters? Because if they can get Nanuet behind the chains, they have a chance to force some turnovers, in my opinion. Again, Nanuet's not very comfortable in 2nd and 3rd and long, throwing the ball. And their secondary, and Matiko had an INT last week. We know Cotter's made some plays. Daniel Picard's made some plays. Hudzinski had an INT. They got some guys who can, if they can get Nanuet into the spread, they can generate some pressure and they can force some turnovers. Mars, what do you want to talk about on this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely an interesting matchup because of the fact that, clearly the top 2 teams, right, A and B, based on just record alone, you can look at that. But, I think that you have Nanuet who finished the game on a very close match. I feel like almost everybody thought the game was over, right?
Yep.
And then they found a way to climb all the way down the field and make a big play to take that lead, which you definitely have to give them a lot of credit for that. But, yeah, when you look at Nanuet, they're really trying to just wear down the clock. They want to own the time of possession. They want to run downhill and just use their speed and their efficiency on the run to just cut you up.
Now they have to do a better job than they did last week.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're really looking at these 2 key playmakers on the offense side. James Moran and Frondy are going to be the 2 biggest guys to look for in this game. I think their offensive line it's not like they're the biggest dudes, but they have just efficiency. They're scrappy guys. And it's kind of interesting because when you look at Nanuet's offensive line and you look at Pleasantville's offensive line, they're very similar to a certain degree. I think they're not the biggest dudes on the field, but they're both scrappy and they're both going to be in your face. So that's why it's almost like and I've heard this from a lot of other people, that it's like a mirror, right, between these teams. They're both like they're similar in a lot of ways because of the way that the way that they play offensively and defensively.
Yeah, the way that they play. Different styles, though, because Nanuet, they don't pull. Like, there are a lot of double teams, drive blocks. Pleasantville will pull. They'll have some angle blocks. They'll try to get the lineman outside. So different styles, but size-wise and their ability to run block is definitely similar, like you said.
Yeah, and then when you look at Pleasantville, I feel like, like you said, they're a heavy run team. I mean, they're looking to run the ball, and then they'll open up some of the play action and some other pass plays that will kind of get their playmakers into space. And they have a lot of different looks they can throw at you. But the question I always have, and I've been saying this for every week, is who other than Daniel Picard is going to make the big play? And every week there's always been a different player that's made a play when you need him to, but you have to have that in again, and you have to have it, I think, just more often. I feel like sometimes you see only one kid make a big play, and then they get out of the win, they get away with a close match. But in order for them to really secure the victory, they have to have a collective of guys that are going to make big plays. Yeah. Because Daniel Picard is going to come here to play. But the question is, what if he doesn't play to the same level as he has been? Are you going to get some other guys to make big plays like Capria has to be efficient? Cotter, is he going to step up and make a big play like he's had in the past? Coleman, he's been he has to make those catches and those because he's a fast kid. You have Matika. They have all these guys who can make plays on the offensive side, but they have to show up. And like you said, a close game, your special teams. John McCarthy is going to be big.
Yeah.
And he's been very efficient. You have to definitely be looking at this kid as being a major cog on this win streak that Pleasantville has. And you have to applaud the offensive line for playing as well as they have. But the defense has been top notch, right?
Yeah.
All around, they have not been giving up these big time plays. I mean, in the beginning of the season, they have, you can look back at during the regular season, they've had some moments with it that's happened. But when you need the most, defense showed up big time, and they have to do that again. The front seven needs to play out of this world, right? And because you're going to have to deal with the speed that Nanuet has, so it should be interesting.
Yeah, to me, the players to watch before I go to the matchup, because I did a video on that as well. Players such as me is the quarterbacks, Mars. Frondy for Nanuet and LaCapria for Pleasantville. To me, Moran is explosive. Daniel Picard is explosive. And obviously, both of them, their ability to generate big chunk plays is going to be important. But I'm looking at these quarterbacks. Can they be the complementary piece to creating those chunk plays? That's going to be big in this one. And to me, the matchup, Mars, what is your matchup before I go to my matchup?
Well, I feel like it's going to be the question of the offensive line of Pleasantville. I feel like when you look at Nanuet's front seven, they have this scrappiness to them. So I feel like the offensive line of Pleasantville needs to really step up big time in this game.
Yeah, to me, I'm actually going to look at both offenses in this one. I know they don't play each other necessarily, but both these offenses are going to be huge, and I'm going to look at their two-star players in James Moran and Daniel Bakar. For this video, we're going to talk about Nanuet and Pleasantville's offenses and how they love to run the ball with physicality, and they showcase two of the best players in the class in James Moran and Daniel Bakar. And we're going to start with Nanuet. And when you play Nanuet offensively, they want to bump and grind with you. They want to drag out, make it a fight. They're going to grind out yards. And they're going to have multiple backs. They'll bring in multiple tight ends, run with physicality. They'll sprinkle in some spread. But they want to run the ball, and they want to move James Moran around to keep defenses on their toes. And this is the first example. This is him as a tailback. And again, they have multiple backs, Hollis Bryzan. We know about quarterback Frondy, but James Moran is the key featured back. And they'll line him up again. In as a tailback, they'll line him up as a fullback, they'll line him up as a wide receiver. They'll move him multiple spots. But you see this formation a lot, and it relies on this offensive line and these tight ends and fullbacks to be physical blockers. They don't like to pull a lot. You're just going to see a lot of double teams and drive blocks, trying to create a little bit of seam for guys like James Moran, who is very explosive in the backfield. And here's the first example of it. Guy coming off the edge and misses the tackle. And again, you can see it. This is what you want to see. There's a lot of just bodies around, pushing and shoving. Feels like a little bit, of a pile-up. James Moran, he's a slippery runner. And if he finds a little crease, he has that explosive ability to hit the home run. And there he is. You look at him squeeze out of that hole right there. And there is the speed that I'm talking about. Extremely explosive player. One of the best players in the class. Let's go to another play. Again, you'll get a heavy dose of Hollis Bryzan, who's also a physical runner, but here he is at the fullback spot, right? Again, 3 backs in the backfield, 2 tight ends. They're going to move him around, and everyone's got to know where James Moran is on the field at all times. And they're going to run a little bit of a counter. And they're going to fake the fullback dive, counter back, and I want you to see the nice little down block right here. Tight end going up to the backer. Get a nice little double team up to the backer. Hollis getting a kick out block right here. Watch this one. Open up. Again, really nice block right here. Tight end getting to the second level. Kick out. Here's the seam right here. And again, this is going to close relatively quickly, but James Moran doesn't need a lot of space. He runs hard. He'll break through arm tackles. Again, let him find the end zone. And now I mentioned they'll sprinkle in a little bit of spread. And here's James Moran again in the slot. And last week this was a huge play on third down, needing a game-winning points, and they hit the big touchdown here to take the lead. And the question is, can other guys make plays? Can they hit some chunk plays? We know about guys like Frondy. Can they make a big play? But again, James Moran, they put him in the slot. I kind of wish we had the back angle. There's a receiver out here that's going to cross in front of him. They're going to be playing man coverage. And you're going to see them crossing each other to try to create some space. James actually gets behind the defender here, and you're going to see a nice throw. Again, other players making big plays. Pretty good protection right here. Frondy has a nice base. He's going to deliver a nice ball, and it gets it over the top of the defense, scoring the touchdown. Big moment. Let's go to Pleasantville. I mean, Pleasantville wants to run the ball as well, and they'll mix it up with some heavy looks and some spread looks, and they've done a pretty good job of attacking the outside, and I would imagine they'd have a similar mindset attacking that physical Nanuet front is getting out on the edge. And they also like to showcase one of their best players, Daniel Picard. And he's one of the best players in the class. Here he is in the slot. You can see they're going to motion and give him a jet. And they're going to rely on this offensive line, these backs to block in space, and they have done a pretty good job of it over the last few weeks. Look at them get out there. Again, really nice job blocking both backers. They get it just enough to seal on the D end, but this is the seam. And again, it feels like it's open slightly, but Daniel just needs that a little bit because he has that explosive ability to hit the hole hard and be extremely explosive. Look at him get shot out of a cannon right there. And he's gone. Again, they'll move Daniel around. This is him at the quarterback spot. Right? A little bit of a wildcat, some beast formation, running the football with him. And I call him Houdini because he seems to escape when there's nothing there. And again, this is going to be a direct snap. We're going to focus in on the play side. Watch these backs. Watch these linemen get these blocks. Right? Decent block in the beginning, but again, it feels like it's getting closed. Right? But Houdini doesn't need a lot of space. He finds a way to run through contact, stay on his feet, and make big plays. Look at him fight through and get that touchdown. Okay, this is against a big Ardsley front. Question I have is, too, who else is going to make plays? Is it going to be at the quarterback spot? Is it going to be one of these young receivers? Is it going to be a guy like Cotter, who's been a real steady force for this team this season? You can see he's going to get a nice little pitch. Again, getting out on the edge. I would imagine that's what they're going to try to attack Nanuet with. And Cotter's another guy. He runs with solid balance and power. Again, look at the nice cut there. Look at him run through contact. These are the kind of plays other people are going to have to make on both sides, whether it's on Nanuet. Who besides James Moran is going to make it? For Pleasantville, who besides Daniel Picard is going to make it? It's going to be real interesting. All right, Mars, let's go to the next one. Let's go to the C title game. All right, let's go to the section title Class C game. Valhalla versus Dobbs Ferry. And historically, Dobbs Ferry is 11-3 versus Valhalla since 2004. This is a rematch from a game earlier this season where they won 34-7. And this is a rematch of the 2019 Section C title game. Section 1 Class C title game. Excuse me. And over the last few years, this Valhalla-Dobbs Ferry matchup has really developed into a nice rivalry, Mars. Let's start with Valhalla. They are the defending Section 1C champs from 2019. And offensively, you're going to see a lot of spread. They go by 2x2s, trips, some bunch. You're going to see a mix of quick throws and some deep shots. A lot of heavy reliance on this offense is with their quarterback, Michael Dawson. Had 4 touchdown passes last week, but they also rely on his legs in the running game is going to be big. But to me, going against Dobbs Ferry, they like to bring a lot of pressure. They're not going to sit and let you throw. So to me, the quick game is going to be important, but also rollouts, sprint outs, moving the pocket. Don't just sit in that pocket and get the heat come at you. Get out of the pocket and try to get the ball out of your hands into your playmaker's hands in space. And then have some design deep shots when you can get some extra protection. Maybe keep a running back in, go into a 7-man protection, and try to give a little extra time so that Michael Dawson, who's a really good deep ball thrower, can hit some big pass plays. That to me is going to be big. But they got to avoid negative plays. Last time they played Dobbs Ferry, they had too many negative plays, which really hurt them. They have the skill guys to make them. I mean, one of them, obviously, Basiaka, big play butcher is what I call him. He's a big play waiting to happen. They'll line him up on the outside. They'll line him up on the single receiver side opposite of trips. They'll put him in the slot and motion him around. They're going to have to move him around. But other guys like Cooper, Potite, they give secondaries trouble, and they're going to have to rely on those guys. But how is this offensive line going to handle these stunts is going to be big. Dobbs Ferry likes to come off the edge. They'll send linebackers through the middle. Another thing they can do as well is Dobbs Ferry will mix it up between sending stunts and then bailing out and going into some max coverages. When you have the advantage numbers-wise in the box, so that means you have more offensive players than they do, you have to be able to run the football, Mars. If they can get some semblance of a running game, it'll really help this offense. That's going to be really important. To me, defensively, Mars, they've allowed 20-plus points at 5 of the last 6 games. Makes me a little nervous. The last time they played Dobbs Ferry, they struggled against the power running. They got to slow down the big plays and try to force a turnover or two. I know it's not going to be easy. They're a little bit outsized. The Dobbs Ferry offensive line is a handful, but they're going to have to try to generate some negative plays and force Dobbs Ferry passing the ball more, even though they've actually improved in that aspect as well. They got to get an extra possession or two for their offense. When I look at Dobbs Ferry, Mars, I know we're talking about smaller schools now, but outside of Somers and Carmel, to me, they have been the most complete team. They've been extremely impressive offensively. It starts with that offensive line that has been dominant. I mean, their ability to move bodies, their ability to pull, block at the second level. This has been a real impressive offensive line that deserves a lot of credit. And they have multiple weapons that they can attack you with. I'm expecting to see a heavy dose of their fullback, Dann, Mars, running with power. See if Valhalla can handle the strength of Dann. And then some of the outside runs. One guy, Robert Sanzo, shifty, big play guy, coming off the edge and pitches and sweeps. Jabari Marslin, who's kind of a slasher at the running back spot. Brandon Holman, another weapon that you can hit off tackle and outside. And I got to tell you, what's really made this offense explode and jump to the next level, Mars, is the passing game. Their quarterback, Javonte Williams, he's been a solid runner. He had 3 passing touchdowns last week. Their passing game has become more efficient out of play action and throwing it to guys like Jonathan Almaraz, who had all 3 receiving touchdowns last week, Mars. If they have the ability to stay in front of the chains and hit some play action plays, this offense is really dominant. I know option offense isn't for everybody, but they run it really beautifully because they can do multiple things, run inside, run outside, and the play action game is big. Defensively, the last time they played Valhalla, like I said before, they do a really good job of mixing up stunts, bringing pressure internally and from the outside, and then mixing it in with some bailing out and going into coverage, only sending one guy. And they'll go into zone. Again, when they go into trips, they want to be in zone. They want to be in zone around Basiaka because you don't want to be in man coverage with him. But I tell you, they do a really good job of creating pressure. Guys like Jabari Marslin at the outside linebacker spot, Mars, he had 4 sacks last week. But this defensive line, guys like Regalado, Loran, the outside linebackers stunting. Can they generate pressure? Force Dawson. Again, if they can stop the initial throws, those quick throws, and force Dawson to hold on, can those guys get home? Because if they can get them in second and third and long, although they can hit big plays, if you get them throwing it a lot, 1 or 2 balls are going to be going to your possession with a turnover, which is going to be big. If they can force turnovers, and also this offense can consistently run the ball, you'll keep Valhalla's offense on the sideline. So that's going to be big. This secondary is going to be tested against those skill guys of Valhalla, Mars. What do you want to talk about on this one?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting because, you look at both these teams, I feel like they've been dominant in their class. And I'll first look at Valhalla. I mean, they have just so much speed to them. There's so many skill players that can really cause a lot of damage. And the biggest one I should be looking at is Michael Dawson. I feel like he has been very efficient. He has the ability to make big plays, and he is a gambler for sure. But he likes to he hits a lot of the gambles that he tries.
Yep.
So the question is going to be whether or not he is going to be efficient in his throws and whether the offensive line can keep Dobbs Ferry's high blitzing from getting to his just getting to him in general. Because if he has the time, he can make big plays. And I feel like that's going to be the priority for Valhalla, is to give him much time as possible and allow him to really cook. And I feel like he can. And defensively, I mean, you're looking at Dobbs Ferry's rush offense, and last game they threw 3 times, and I feel like you have to try to limit the amount of how easy it is for Dobbs Ferry to run, force him to throw a little bit more, right? Yeah. And I know that they've been efficient.
We've talked about it. If you get him to throw over 6 times, I feel like you're in good position.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, they've been efficient whenever they did throw, but force them to do it more often. I mean, you only had to throw it 3 times. Four times last game.
3 touchdowns.
That's kind of wild. So try to force him to throw a little bit more and try to capitalize using your speed and your athleticism. And for Dobbs Ferry's point of view, I mean, they're definitely going to test Valhalla to see whether or not they can handle Brian Dann in this offensive line. I mean, they've been dominating everybody this whole season long and in the playoffs. So, if they can establish that run, then like we just mentioned, they could hit those play action passes and be very efficient. I think the most important thing for them is trying to slow down this offense of Valhalla. I feel like that's going to be the big key because I don't have any doubts that Dobbs Ferry can run the ball. Right, the question is going to be whether this is going to be can you stop Valhalla from making big plays so that you can control the time of possession on your end? Just because if you're controlling time of possession, then what Valhalla has a big play scores like in a very short amount of time, then what that battle may not be in your favor, right? You have to be efficient. So it's going to be an interesting matchup in my opinion.
What's your matchup on this one?
Well, my matchup, I think, is going to be I'm actually going to put it on Valhalla's offense versus, I'll say the offensive line versus this Dobbs Ferry front seven because of the fact that they like to send a lot of heat. And, at the end of the day, if you can keep Dawson upright and keep him protected, then I think you'll see a lot of big plays on their offensive side.
I did a video breakdown. I'm actually going to look at that Valhalla offense versus this Dobbs Ferry defense and some of those stunts that you talked about. The player to watch, Morris, I'm going to pick one from each side. The quarterback, Javonte Williams of Dobbs Ferry, he has been really efficient these last few weeks and has really elevated this offense because of that efficiency. I'm interested to see how he plays both as a runner and a passer. And on the other side, Basiaka Butcher for Valhalla. This is a big play guy, a guy who can take those short passes, go and take it the long way, and he can also win those one-on-one matchups. He's going to draw a lot of attention. And even the last time that Dobbs Ferry played him, you saw even when he was a single receiver, they had two guys over the, one guy in his face, another guy over the top, opens things up for everybody else. I did an interview for this game as well. I spoke with Brian Dann, the fullback and linebacker at Dobbs Ferry, talked about him, the team, and the game coming up. Joining us now, he is the fullback and linebacker for Dobbs Ferry High School. I want to welcome to the show Brian Dann. Thank you so much for joining us, Brian.
Glad to be here, Frank.
Listen, before we go into the team, into the game, I have to ask you, you're living out a lot of offensive linemen's dreams. When you first started, you were an offensive lineman on Dobbs Ferry that transitioned into fullback, and you've really exploded. You're now the fullback spot, the linebacker spot. Can you explain how that transpired? How did the move transpire? Did coach come to you? Did you go to coach? What is the secret behind this living out the fantasy that all linemen are hoping to accomplish?
Yeah, so during like COVID, when like we weren't allowed out or anything, I started to work out with my brother a lot more. And like I lost a bunch of weight from when I was at center. And then since our fullback left, they needed a spot. And I asked coach if I could play, he could give me some reps there. And now I'm the fullback.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a funny story. And being at a center spot, you obviously have to know how to block. And I think you're actually one of the better blockers at the fullback spot. Is that where you've, transitioned? How did you learn to block in space so well? You do a really good job as a lead blocker. Where did that come from?
It's definitely from being the center. Yeah. When you're there your whole freshman year, it's just like you're blocking a nose guard, but in space now against a smaller guy, which helps a lot more.
Yeah. Now, you're a two-way player, and at the fullback spot I mentioned, you run really hard, you block well. At the linebacker spot, you make a lot of plays. What's your favorite spot? Do you like offense more or defense more?
I'm an offensive guy more. I feel like it's just more fun for me. I get the ball a lot, so it's pretty fun.
This season, you guys offensively have been really both sides of the ball really strong and really consistent. And I know being at the smaller school, not a lot of people recognize Dobbs Ferry. I think outside Somers and Carmel, you guys have been the most consistent team on both sides of the ball. What have you guys done on the offensive side of the ball well that you think can carry into this championship game?
I think it's just the whole line. The O-line's just got to keep on working like they do every single week. I mean, it works out well since we have a lot of different weapons on the team. If our inside game isn't working too well, then we just start to go to the outside more If the outside isn't there, then we just go back inside, and it's all a big shout out to the O-line.
What about defensively? Similar. I know that offensive line has been dominant. What about on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, defense side is we just have a bunch of guys like in space that are good as well. Like the D-line, we also got some big guys there. And we got like Jabari, he's a great defensive player more than offense. Guys like Sanzo, Gorgadakis, we all play like big roles in the defense.
Now, you guys played Valhalla before, and Dobbs, Ferry, Valhalla has really grown over the last couple of years as becoming a bit of a rivalry in that Class C. Now, you guys won last time. I always think it's always hard to beat a team twice in one season because they see how you want to attack them. But what have you seen? Obviously, you watched film on Valhalla. It hasn't been too long since you played them. What did you see from Valhalla on the offensive side of the ball since you play both ways? That makes them dangerous. That makes them a talented football team.
Yeah, they're a really good team, like well coached over there. Dawson, he's a very good quarterback. He'll make you pay. Like he has the good wide receiver, number 7 Basaka. When those two throw the ball together, it's a tough duo to stop.
What about on the other side of the ball? Because obviously you're running the option. It all starts with the fullback spot. What do they do defensively? I know you guys had success running the ball. What do you do defensively that you guys have to be aware of?
We just got to be aware of everyone like flowing down hard. We got to be able to read our keys on offense. O-line just got to play fast, physical. We got to control the pace of the game.
Obviously, you guys want to end the section run going undefeated, winning the section title. What do you believe needs to be done this weekend to be named section champs?
Well, first, it starts out with a great week of practice. This week has gone really good so far. But then when it comes to Saturday, I think we just got to execute like our game plan and do the little things that matter the most to get us the sectionship.
Thank you so much, Brian. I really do appreciate you giving us a few moments of your time. Really enjoyed watching you play this season, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
All right, Mars, let's go to our last game. Section 1 title game in Class D. This annual rivalry, Haldane versus Tuckahoe. Always a fun game. Last time they played in the spring, Mars, they had that classic game where Tuckahoe won 37-36. Historically, Tuckahoe is 21-4-1 versus Haldane. They have won 3 straight. But this has been a real fun rivalry. They played each other 25 times, which is pretty crazy. Tuckahoe, they were 7-1 on the season. Both these teams had a bye week last week. I don't always love bye weeks, although both these teams have been a little beat up, so it actually might have been a good thing. But Tuckahoe is 7-1. We'll start with them. They've had impressive wins. Both these teams have been very competitive in C. And really, I thought they've both shown to be probably some of the best teams in both C and D. Only up against Dobbs Ferry is the one that they struggled, and I thought Tuckahoe played pretty strong against them. Mm-hmm. Tuckahoe, they've had wins over Magnus, Croton, Harmon, and Valhalla, the other 3 C playoff teams. So both teams have been really impressive for D schools playing up and playing competitively. Offensively, again, this was the number 2 offense out of the C and D teams at the end of the regular season. It starts with this offensive line, guys like Santucci, Reichelt, Halavin, Labrini. They'll bring in other guys, Lattimore, Wisner, Cypher. They have multiple bodies that they could put on the offensive line. Does a really good job. To me, I know there's a heavy reliance on the quarterback, but I think Myers, to me, they've been an injury at the quarterback spot. He's had 10 touchdowns and over 300 yards the last 2 games. They have gone back to running the football quite often, and Myers has delivered, and he's going to be extremely important in this game. This is a guy who can run with power and speed. And I mentioned the question at the quarterback spot. Annunziata's had a really good season, but he hasn't played the last couple weeks, right? And I'm not sure his status. Now, their quarterback, Coliseo or Colachicho, I apologize if I butchered his name. He has stepped in, and I thought the last couple games has been really efficient. I mean, they have weapons. They have a balanced attack. They've relied on the running game the last couple weeks, and the passing game has been a complementary piece. But they have the weapons. I mean, John Benke, he's a big target, beast of a wide receiver. Got Connor Benke, Pagnotta, and they have receivers who can make big plays. But it starts with the running game, and can they go to play action and the big plays out of that? to me is going to be huge in this one. Defensively, Mars, they got to stop the run game with their front seven. Keep the Haldane quarterback also in the pocket. He's a guy who's mobile, who can buy some time and hit some big throws. Haldane has reliable receivers, but if they can stop Gianchinto running the ball and, the quarterback, if he gets out of the pocket, he can hit those big plays. Keep him in the pocket. The secondary will be tested. And they have given up some big plays in the passing game before. So you're looking at this defensive line, guys like Reichelt, you got Cypher, you got Myers. Can they generate pressure? The defensive line and linebackers generating pressure on the quarterback is going to be big. When I look at Haldane, they went 6-2, including a forfeit victory. They have they have a close game versus Albertus Magnus. They lost. They won versus Valhalla. Now, Haldane has suffered some injuries. They've been beat up over the last few weeks, so I think the bye week was really good for them. We'll see the status of some of those guys coming back. But offensively, I'm looking at this offensive line led by Etta. They have to step up big time going up against the defensive line of Tuckahoe, who has been really strong. And can they pass protect their quarterback? Because I do think they have the ability to make some big plays in the passing game if they can get some protection. Quarterback Ryan Van Tassel is a guy who is mobile. He's made some big plays in this offense, and he's thrown to quite a few different receivers. Ryan Irwin, to me, has been really good on both sides of the ball. But you got Hombo, Cerrone. But the X factor is that running back, Evan Gianchinto. I mean, this guy, he's their lead running back. He's been a huge in the run game, but he's also a guy who can receive out of the backfield in the passing game. You can move him around. He is the big X factor to him. Another guy, Michael Murray, the last couple of games, he's also made some really nice plays as well. To me, Haldane's got to sprinkle it around. It's not going to be easy running. They got to stay consistent with the running game, and because that'll open things up in the passing game, and where they, I think, can hit those big chunk plays out of that. Defensively, Mars, this is a defense, I got to say, that has been really impressive. I mean, this was the number 2 defense in points allowed at the end of the regular season out of the C&D schools. This is a scrappy defensive unit that doesn't give up a lot of big plays. But to me, it's got to start with stopping Myers, especially with the question marks at the quarterback spot. I think Haldane has a solid secondary, but I'm looking at this guys like Stubberfeld, Rucker, Mason, who's had a strong season, Gianchinta, got to step up into the running game. And then the defensive backs, Ryan Irwin, again, who's been really, really strong for this team, has made a lot of plays. Cerrone, they're going to have to win versus some of those big receivers that Tuckahoe has. It's going to be hard to stop both, but I do think you can't let Myers get going the way he has the last couple of weeks, because then you're going to be behind the 8 ball. So to me, stopping the run is the number 1 priority, Mars, and to have your secondary with guys like Gaines, if they could step up and match up with these receivers, Mars. What do you want to talk about on this one?
Yeah, this game is definitely going to be interesting. I mean, when you look at Tuckahoe first, you have to applaud the way this offensive line and the way that Myers is playing. I mean, they're dominating, and Myers, I think, I forgot which week it was, but when it was near Halloween, they started playing the Michael Myers music in the background from the famous Halloween movie. So
he had 5 touchdowns that game. I think
he's just been haunting people's, just haunting everybody. So I think that he just has to continue playing the way he is, because obviously Tuckahoe is relying on this rush offense to really set the tone of the game, and this offensive line and the way that he's playing, I wouldn't put it by them. I mean, it's been working. Keep rolling with it. And I feel like when you look at this defensively, you have to try to keep everything contained. I mean, you play against Haldane, they have a lot of speed. They have a lot of ability to make big plays, especially when they get to the outside. So set the edge, cause some pressure from the defensive line in the front 7, and let's see if you can try to get your offense back onto the field. For Haldane's perspective, I feel like the O-line needs to be step it up big time, because Tuckahoe has a good defensive line front, and you definitely need to establish a kind of some lanes for your guys to make plays. Because in my opinion, this offense needs to be a collective in how they win this game. It can't be reliant on one guy. It needs to be a group effort from multiple guys that need to show up. And for defensively, it's really about stopping the run. If you can stop the run and force your good secondary to make a play, I think that'd be good, mainly in your favor. Try to send the heat, cause some pressure, make Myers not be the only reason why.
Yeah, and it depends. Annunziata's had a really good season. Don't know his status. I mean, if they have the backup quarterback, and you have to take away the run game, right?
Yeah, I agree.
That's going to be the big one. Now, I didn't have a video matchup on this one, Mars. What is your matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when I look at the matchup, I'm going to have to keep putting on the Tuckahoe offensive line and Myers versus Haldane's front seven.
That's exactly what I have.
You're going to have to,
matchup.
because at the end of the day, that's going to set the whole tone of the game. If Haldane can send the heat, slow down Myers, then you're going to see more chances for Haldane to try to get some points on the board.
Absolutely. That is my matchup. It's going to be huge in this one, especially with the question marks about who's playing at the quarterback spot for Tuckahoe. And Haldane's defense has been a scrappy defense. So that's going to be a real interesting matchup. And the players to watch, I'm looking at the running backs. Running back Michael Myers of Tuckahoe and running back Evan Gianchinta, both really talented football players. Gianchinta is kind of a rising player for Haldane. Both these guys are going to be huge in this one. All right, Mars, you ready for the game picks? Let's go to the big picks. Who is going to be section champs? You ready for it?
I'm ready to roll, man. Try to get my percentage up a little bit more.
Well, those are all. That's over.
Right.
I'm already crowned. These don't really. I mean, these are just for bragging rights at the end. But let's get into it, Mars. Let's start with AA. Arlington versus Carmel. I'll let you go first. Who do you think wins?
Well, this one's definitely going to be interesting because and I keep hounding on this idea, but I was the one that kept saying that Arlington and Carmel were the top two offenses.
You keep saying that, but Arlington wasn't a top two offense.
Well, I mean, the way they've been playing, I feel like
I get the last month, but
I deserve
overall they weren't there.
Well, here's the thing: when I first made that prediction at the beginning of the year, I was thinking that these were going to be the top two teams by the end of the season. Now, I didn't think that New Rochelle would lose to Arlington to get there. I thought it would be the other way around. I thought New Rochelle would lose to Carmel on this path. But I'm still kind of right in the end. But Arlington's offense has been very good. I feel like they've just been power football incarnate. Their offensive line has been very good, and then you just have a bunch of skill players that have been playing out of this world. I mean, obviously Resigno's been playing very well, but then you just have a lot of other skill players that just are kicking up a notch. And then if we look at Carmel's perspective, they've been dominating everybody, right? I feel like they offensive line, defensive line, just been defensively holding down pat, offensive line just moving everyone around. So you look at both of these perspectives. I'm going to go with Carmel. I think Carmel's going to win the section title. I think this is going to be a closer game than what we've seen in the regular season.
Week,
and I think that Arlington's going to show up with a purpose. They're going to be at home. They're going to have a lot of momentum on their side. The place is going to be rocking. And I just think Carmel just has enough to just win the game. I think they have just the momentum going for them, the chemistry going for them. This is a special moment, and I think they're going to finally capitalize on it.
To me, this is a much different Arlington team than Carmel saw at the beginning of the season. The offensive line has stepped it up a notch. Quarterback play has stepped it up a notch. These running backs are playing really well. And to me, the defensive line has been generating a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks, which is going to be extremely important in this game. But I agree with you. I'm going to go with Carmel as well. I just feel Carmel has been a complete team from start to finish. They've been focused, and this is the big moment. This is the moment they've been talking about since August, and now I think they're going to capitalize on that moment. They're going to win this game. It'll definitely be closer than what we saw in the beginning of the season, but I'm going to go with Carmel. Let's go to the Class A game, Mars. Rye versus Somers. I mean, Somers hasn't played a close game in like 7-8 weeks. Rye has been a gritty team, has gone through a bunch of injuries and made it back there. They're actually the defending champs, Mars. Who do you got winning and why?
I mean, this is like I keep saying that I said this earlier in the show, but if we're going to pick a game of the week, I feel like this would be the game of the week because of the fact that this is a long-time rivalry. These programs have been playing against each other in the section title several times, and these are the preseason.
Section title? I think playoffs more.
Playoffs more often. Yeah, playoffs more
often.
But I feel like when you look at the preseason rankings, Rye and Somers were always still near the top, but Somers was like the bigger question of what would they be like, and now the other way around is like, or is Rye going to be that same dominant team going into the section title game? And Somers is now seen as the dominant,
favorite,
the favorite here. So when you look at both the teams, though, I mean, Rye has so many weapons that can really hurt you. But the question I still have is health. I mean, how healthy is the team? And that was the question that a lot of people, including myself, last week was asking when they played against Manpack. But even with that happening, they still showed up. They still won the game. And when they needed to, all those guys stepped up big time. And Caden Whaling was definitely he's a freak of nature. Even when he's not completely healthy, he shows you that he is one of the best players in Section 1. And the question I have for Rye is, will Kovacs play to the next level like Caden Whaling usually does? If he does, then this game could be very interesting. And then when you look at Somers, the offensive line has just been so dominant. In my opinion, probably the best or second best offensive line in all of Section 1. And they just have a lot of ways to hurt you, but I've been most impressed with Fitzsimons. I think that he's been very good in the offense. Defensively, they just are smothering people. So with all that being said, I'm going to go with Somers. I think Somers is going to prove that they are the same program that they were last year, that they were the year before, and they've been for a very long time. I think that they have a well-oiled machine in this program, and I think that they have more health. They have just been dominating everybody, and unfortunately, I am just still have some questions about Rye's health completely in order to pick them in this game. I think it was a big win last week, but it's a little different this week. I'm going to go Somers.
This is definitely a step up in competition for Rye. Rye has to start off faster. They cannot go into the hole like they did against Mayapack. And I thought, if they get out to a slow start like they did versus Pelham and versus Mayapack, this game will be over quick. I mean, Somers jumps on you very quick. They're a very fast-starting team. So Rye definitely has to come out of the gates quicker. Obviously, Caden Whaling, Kovacs, they're going to have to be huge in this game. We don't know about Tepedino, which is a really important player. To me, again, those two guys and some of these receivers have to be big. And if those defense, they like to be aggressive, and I think that's what the style they're going to stay with. They can't just sit. They have to come after you. Those secondary guys are going to have to play man-to-man with some stud receivers like Mancuso and Somers. And Somers, to me, again, since week 1, has been a real complete team. Haven't played a close game all season long. Dominant front, guys like Polito, guys like Fowler, running back spot, Kapika, wide receiver Mancuso, quarterback Fitzsimons. The list goes on and on and on. I picked Rye before the season to win the section title. Now, I had it versus a different team. I thought Somers would be good. I didn't think they would be this good before the season. And I got to say this, if Somers and Rye were to play 10 times, I bet Somers wins probably 8 out of the 10. But you only got to be good on Friday night. So screw it. I'm going with Rye. I'm going to stick with my preseason prediction, Mars. Maybe I'm throwing it. Maybe I'm crazy. But Rye just has a grittiness to him. And to me, the first quarter is really going to show me whether Rye has a chance or not. If this game is close going into the fourth quarter, all bets are off. Right? Because Rye has shown that they can win close games. I haven't seen Somers in a close game yet this season, besides the week 1. So to me, the big thing is getting pressure on Fitzsimons, trying to force some mistakes. They got to get home, and this defensive back group has to be able to play and win those 50-50 balls, or they don't have a chance. And if their offensive line can play the level they did last week and open up some lanes to get some running, I think this passing attack is going to play better this week. Maybe I'm throwing, maybe I'm crazy, but I'm going to go down with the ship. I'm going with Rye, Mars. Let's go to the B game. Now, I know, Mars, because of where you are, you can't pick this one, but give me your final thoughts on Nanuet and Pleasantville.
Yeah, I mean, I said this earlier. I feel like these teams are evenly matched. They're very similar into a lot of the grittiness that all the players have. But when you look at this game, I feel like momentum. I mean, I might sound like a homer here, right? Well, momentum, I feel like, is on Pleasantville's side. I feel like Nanuet has, they had a big win in a very close, end of the game. But I feel like when you look at the past few games, the offense has had some struggles. And I think Pleasantville has actually shown that they can now do even more on the offensive side than they have in the previous weeks prior. And, I think the biggest thing, and I know, like you said, it only matters what happens on that game night. But just looking at a victory you had against Ardsley, right? And a big win in Ardsley. When people remember back, I know that Nanuet wasn't completely healthy back then, but Ardsley had kind of their way with Nanuet when they played him.
The quarterback didn't play for Nanuet.
I know, but I'm just saying it kind of it's a little it's just kind of a little showing. But I don't know. I'm not picking the game here, but it should be a very interesting one.
I'm going to say this, Nanuet, I think actually both offenses have been a little sluggish. for both Nanuet and Pleasantville. They just haven't been able to generate enough consistency, and especially out of the passing game for both teams. But they've both made plays in big moments, right? Nanuet, they had that big drive to score the game-winning touchdown last week. Pleasantville showed in the fourth quarter when they needed to generate first downs, they did, and ended up punching in and sealing the game, running the ball. Both offenses are pretty heavily reliant on James Moran making a big play and Daniel Bakar making a big play. So the question to me is which one is going to make that big play versus these stout defenses? Another question is which quarterback and which other weapons is going to make big plays? To me, I'm a little more confident in Pleasantville's secondary group, whether it's guys like Cotter, whether it is LaCapria who can generate some plays, and some of these young receivers. Both defenses, to me, this is going to be a low-scoring game. Points are going to be at a premium. There'll be some drives, but it's going to be hard to get into the end zone. And with the kicker that Pleasantville has, and with some of the other playmakers Pleasantville has, I'm going to go with Pleasantville on this one. Close game. I have a lot of respect for Nanuet. They've had a tremendous season. I like a lot of their players. Both are they do different styles, but mirror images of each other with stout defenses and run-heavy offenses. But I'm going to go with Pleasantville. All right, Mars, let's go to the C game. Valhalla versus Dobbs Ferry. Who do you got and why?
Well, this is just another example of dominance on both these teams. I mean, they dominated their class, and when you look at Valhalla, a lot of speed, a lot of skill player, a lot of big playability, and you have to look kind of focus that specifically when you look at Michael Dawson. He has the ability to make some crazy throws, but he also has some times where he takes a gamble and it doesn't really pay off as well. So you look at that offense, it just has a bang or bust type of mentality, and they can really run up the score. Dobbs Ferry is more of a grind type of offense, but they can score a lot of points. Even though they are a run-heavy type of offense, they can score a lot.
Yep.
And they can really wear you down. And when you look at both these teams, I'm going to have to give it to Dobbs Ferry. I think their offensive line has been so good, and this combination between them and Brian Dann, alongside a lot of other guys that can really run the rock and also be very efficient throwing. I mean, they don't have to throw the ball a lot, but when they do, they've been very good at it. So
the last few weeks,
I just feel like they just have more to the table because of the fact that defense is playing very well, and they really have been capitalizing on a lot of stunts they send. I think Dobbs Ferry has the advantage. I'm going to go with them.
Both offenses explosive in their own ways. We talked about it in the game, but to me, it's the defenses, and Valhalla has shown that they can give up some big plays defensively. Dobbs Ferry has, but this is also the number one defense in points allowed out of the C and D schools. I'm going to go with Dobbs Ferry. I think they've just been a more complete team, and they're going to seal the deal this weekend. Finally, the D game, Mars, Haldane versus Tucko, this annual rivalry for the D title. Who do you got and why?
Well, I feel like when you look at Tucko, the big story is going to be how does this offensive line continue to play well, and how does Michael Myers continue to dominate? Because when you look at the matchup between them and the front seven of Haldane, I mean, they've been very scrappy. They've been very good. And we already mentioned that was the matchup to watch. I just think that Tucko looks like they're on a purpose. Michael Myers is just dominant. He's going to be haunting some more dreams, later that night.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go Tucko here.
I feel like this is going to be another classic game. Tucko's defense has given up some big plays, and Haldane's pass attack could hit on some big ones in this one. But I am also going to go with Tucko. I just feel like Tucko has a little bit more firepower than Haldane. Haldane's defense has been really scrappy, so don't look for them to make it a little bit difficult for Tucko. Question to me is the quarterback spot. If I knew Annunziata was playing, I feel a little bit more confident, but I'm still going to go with Tucko. I think they make a few more big plays. I do think this is going to be another real close one and another fun Haldane-Tucko matchup. All right, everyone, that was our show, our last show. Again, we want to thank everybody for tuning in and the support that you've shown us all season long. And I want to thank Marcilio again for all the work that he has put in producing the videos that you see. We hope for the one final time, again, and the hope is to come back next season and continue to grow this thing. But for one final time this season, we hope you have a football-filled weekend, and we'll see you all very soon.